Good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of the Richard Urban Show. I'm your host, Richard Urban, coming to you from historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. We bring you news and views from God's point of view. Today, we're very happy for part 9 of the series on family root and absolute sexual ethics to have Yana Johnson on, an old friend. So please introduce yourself.
Yep. Well, I'm happy to be on. Yana Johnson. I'm an old friend from long before working with urban life training, and always just very good memories around the importance of abstinence for youth. And so that's a big part of always been actually something that I'm very passionate about, especially now. I have 2 boys, 6 and 5 years old. And so I really appreciate all the things I've learned from you, and also in family and raising youth, with really being proud about purity and having a family. So that's a big, important part for me, and I'm happy to be a part of the show today. I think it's a very cool podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen so we can do the reading for today on the family rooted in sexual ethics, absolute sexual ethics, which is a model for God's absoluteness, peace, and ideal, and the global kingdom. In this light, I would like to repeat the proposal I have made for a truly providential and revolutionary project for the sake of peace and human welfare, and the building of God's homeland and original hometown. From the historical point of view, the divisions of our world into East and West, North and South, were wrought by Satan. I am proposing that we build a passage across the Bering Strait that separates the North American and Russian land masses. This passage, which I call the World Peace King Bridge Tunnel, will link an international highway system that will allow people to travel on land from Africa's Cape of Good Hope to Santiago, Chile, and from London to New York across the Bering Strait, connecting the world as a single community. God is warning us that he will no longer tolerate separation and division. Carrying out this project will bind the world together as one village. It will tear down the man-made walls of race, culture, religion, and country, and establish the kingdom of the peaceful, ideal world that has been God's cherished desire. The United States and Russia can become one. The European Union, China, India, Japan, Brazil, and all nations, and also the world's religions, can combine their energies to succeed in this project. Its success will be decisive in establishing the kingdom of the peaceful, ideal world where people no longer wage war. Beloved, blessed families, you are now living in the most blessed and exalted time in history. There, after the coming of heaven has arrived, I proclaim the beginning of the new heaven and new earth, long awaited, yearned for by billions of your ancestors in the spirit world who have come and gone throughout history. This is the era of the kingdom of the peaceful, ideal world. The 4 great religious founders and billions of good ancestors have come down to earth to guide you on the heavenly path. The age when the fallen and corrupt world wreaks havoc on humankind, allowing evil people to live better than others, is passing away. We should seek out and establish that nation in righteousness, the ultimate destination for all of us, that attends God as the center. What would that nation be? It would be the kingdom of the peaceful, ideal world. It would be a nation that resembles the form of a model true family, with 3 generations living together in harmony, trusting, respecting, and supporting one another, and becoming one in love. In short, it is a nation that humanity has desired throughout the ages, the utopia where God is sovereign. This means that a movement to realize a society of mutual interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values is necessary. We need to make humanity one great family by breaking down the walls in our hearts and eliminating even the boundaries between nations. This movement begins from each family. Therefore, each of us should bear in mind that it is our providential calling to establish a true family. This is the way we can advance the establishment of the universal peace kingdom on earth. Indeed, all this is coming to pass. In the Middle East, one of the world's tinderboxes, Jews, Christians, and Muslims have found the resources in my philosophy of peace to engage in a new dimension of dialogue. In past decades, my unification thought played a decisive role in ending the Cold War. Now I'm successfully leading behind the scenes efforts to bring about the reunification of my homeland of Korea. But I am not yet satisfied because I began my life's work at the command of heaven. I have come as a true parent of humankind with God's anointing, and I am determined to keep my promise to him. I am determined to obliterate all national divisions and barriers that poison this earth and to establish the kingdom of the peaceful ideal world where all people everywhere can live hand in hand. So that ends our reading from the Family Rooted in Absolute Sexual Ethics. That's by Reverend Sun Myung Moon. Yeah, I'd like to get your comments on that.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my favorite speeches and readings, and especially that part. I feel like it paints so many great pictures of what, first with the Peace Road idea, like driving from London to New York, and how the world can all be connected by a highway, and then how it paints a picture about what a family would look like, the kind of family that would help create this ideal society. And I feel like it's all about connection, which is really nice. Even the last line goes back to keep working, breaking down the barriers, no barriers, and how we can connect and live hand in hand, which kind of ties to the peace, the idea of having an international peace highway that connects everything. Yeah, so that's very, I think, inspiring. I think it's nice to see, paint a picture of what that kind of world, because we talk about world peace, and I think especially now, Christmas time of year, there's lots of songs about peace, but it's not, it can be kind of vague, but I feel like those were very specific details.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you, by the way, you know, I've read some about the Peace Highway and looked up some different websites. I even saw that on Discovery Channel. They had a special on it. And it wasn't from the unification perspective, but just from the like engineering perspective, which I thought was pretty cool. I hadn't seen that until recently. I think it was done though, like maybe 5 years ago. But do you know anything about the progress on this project? I mean, I don't really know.
Yeah, neither do I. I don't know fully. I know there's the idea of talking about it, to the concept, and the reunification of North and South Korea also is a big Peace Road as an example, because so it's still done like symbolically, but the actual building of it, that I don't know where that is. I
Yeah.
had an idea though personally where I thought it would be such a cool board game concept that could, and then use that to fund some ideas, like what it takes to build, just try it out in a board game first, how nations would have to work together and to build it. And yeah.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, one thing that, you know, Father Moon was talking about is the religious people. I might have been one of the other peace messages. I'm not sure it said it here, but religious people should work together to do this. It's kind of such a different concept. You think like building a highway is like governmental, or it's maybe, you know, venture capital. Well, I'm sure it is all those things, but he's saying religious people should do it. I mean, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think that's like part of that whole context of breaking down the barriers and harmony, because if the religious people can have unity on this goal, unite on that, that would really help pursue it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see it gain more traction. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm aware of it, of course, since, you know, Father's been talking about in this peace message and several of the other ones, but I haven't like been involved substantially.
Yeah.
But I know there are different organizations working toward that. I'm not sure like how they work together, or if, I mean, there may be, I'm sure, one unifications organization, but it seems like there's several others too that are working on this concept.
On this, yeah. And I think the key is like how well they can work together. That's the only way it would work, right? So
yeah, I mean, I'd love, like President Trump said that, you know, he started the Space Force, which is interesting, you know, too. I was reading recently in the Chansung Yang that Reverend Moon mentioned something about exploring space in the context of, I guess, peace, whatever. But the point being is like, wow, this would be a great world uniting project. Imagine like President Putin or President Trump, like different nations, or even in China, you know, Xi Jinping or whatever, promoting this project. That's really what he's talking about. I mean, where they would actually have to meet together and see how they could make it happen, you know?
And I think part of why it just brought up something else when you asked like why the religious leaders, is because they're longer, you know, religious leaders often have a community around that they're, it's for the life, you know, someone joins a community and it's kind of their life
Yeah.
time. It's not a certain, you know, the project can continue after 4, 8 years, whatever, it still continues. So I think maybe that's part of it too, with like,
Yeah,
if
you're
we
right.
continued on.
Yeah, that's such an
Yeah.
interesting thing. And then one statement caught my attention also, especially talking about the movement begins from each family.
Mm.
And then it says in the next sentence, so we should establish a true family. This is the way we can advance, establish the universal peace kingdom on earth. I mean, do you have some reflections on that?
Yeah, actually, it made me think of my own family because, well, my husband's from Norway. I'm from the US, and we've been living in Norway, and now we've moved to the US. And it's like you're married to two different cultures and nations, and you also have different experiences. And there's a lot of barriers to break down and understand each other. And I think that's a really wonderful example of, and building a family together. And then for my own sons, who they speak two languages, you know, they're, for them, their world is kind of two nations brought together. Like that's what they're growing up in. And it's really quite special because it's, you, yeah, I feel I had that experience too, living in different countries, but I feel like you're very aware that just because someone does something different, you know, it's okay, right? Like you're kind of quite, it could be confronting when, and I remember especially little things in Norway that were so, it was the small things that felt like, oh, it's so different. Why did they do that? You know, and having to learn to understand. And I think that's really important for, obviously, family is a place where you learn a lot of those things, but it's like an added element of having to learn how to understand a different culture and different language. And that's a lot of the idea behind the blessing and what, like, really the movement that was started is that literally breaking down some of those cultural barriers in your family. So it's quite powerful, I think, thinking of that way. So that, yeah, that line also stood out to me a lot, when, and how that literally is the model for world peace.
Yeah, I agree.
Incredible.
I agree. The family, that's absolutely true. And by the
Yeah.
family, we mean a man, a woman, and the children. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yep.
Right. A lot of, yeah. So definitely. Well, yeah, that definitely struck me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, I noticed about like the you know, Reverend Moon here, Father Moon is announcing that the peace kingdom has begun.
Mm.
You know, he's already talking about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. He's mentioning that. Seek out the nation and its righteousness. Well, here it's saying that the year after coming of heaven has arrived. I proclaim the beginning of the new heaven and new earth, long awaited, yearned for by billions of your ancestors in the spirit world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's your reflections on that? I know we're in crazy times, so I'm probably not here
Yeah.
to particularly talk politics, but I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So, I mean, and then yet we see this proclamation. By the way, I believe that it's true. So
Yeah.
don't take me wrongly, of course. But
Yeah.
like, how do you parse everything? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, that's so funny because I think about this a lot. I found that I operate from, we're already in the peace, in a peace kingdom world. So I'm less, so I was trying to explain this yesterday with someone where it's like, and that's what I love about what we read, because it's painting a picture of what that peace, and in detail, right, what it means to actually live. So I live in that kind of like, okay, we're already in an ideal society or a world, imagining we're already there, like making it real, and how would I act if that was already the way it was, you know? And there's like this, it's what's that word, manifesting, you know, that idea that you already are
Yeah,
there, the
yeah.
gap from where you want to be to there. And so a lot of times when things happen, especially when there's division inside, that part struck me too. There was a line in the beginning about God will no longer tolerate separation and division.
Yeah, that's
And I
very
feel
interesting.
like there's so much separation and division. And then I always think of like, well, there's always some third harmonious way. And I feel like that's really God. You know, that's where you find God, is in this, how to bring harmony, and that what is that third harmonious way. And so that's where and a lot of times it comes from stepping totally out of where we are now, because I feel like we're sometimes like, oh, the reality of where we are now and what's the next step, but you can't really move because it feels so crazy. But when I think, like, paint the picture of details what that would look like the Peace Road idea, how could we actually get to that when right now people are fighting so much? How could they even agree? But painting a picture of the Peace Road, and we're already living in a world where that is there, it helps me behave in a way that's, I can really be loving and love toward people instead of um, stuck in the reality. But I also do avoid a lot of things like the news and stuff that I feel don't help create
Well, I do agree that most of the news is not, I mean, it's so
healthy.
lopsided and so biased. It's
Yeah.
like blatantly, almost, well, you could say it's blatantly false. I mean, it's just so biased. So I would agree
Yeah.
with you on that. It's
Like,
good to,
I really love was it Abraham Lincoln? The best way to predict the future is to create it. So I'll think about that a lot. Like, what's the creative energy that's needed to make that?
yeah.
Like the Peace Road, I think, is a great example of a super creative project. And the only way it would work is everyone figured out a way to work together. But it's like putting the energy somewhere else instead of on a lot
Yeah.
of the
Because
women.
that is such, I don't want to say it's enigmatic, but I mean, I've often wondered, like, this project, like True Father emphasized, Father of the
Yeah.
Moon, this project, I think it is in I think like 17 piece message, more than that even, maybe
Yeah.
10 of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, this was a key project. And honestly, I don't know who's really, I mean, I know some people are working on it from different perspectives, but Father Moon said this is an incredibly, relevant project. So there's a reason for that. And it would be a very, like you say, uniting, substantial project,
Yeah.
to work toward. Kind of like, I mean, you think about things like, oh, we're going to, like, I think President Trump announced, we're going to go to Mars. That's nice, but I think this would be a way better use of
I know.
resources. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. I've always thought that. And those are the kind of conversations we try to have with people, is because even there's a lot of hype around virtual reality and all the things you can, artificial intelligence. But I'm like, well, the reality in the day to day, let's try to make that better versus living in, another virtual reality and focusing, kind of creating a bubble. But I feel like there's yeah, it takes work, but I think if people really work together more, then that's what I find is really powerful about the peace messages. And my own experience, like with business and everything, is actually, and I notice this in Norway, it's hard. People don't always know how to work together with those who are different than them. And I think a lot of the teachings from Father Moon are something that's helped me learn how to work together well. I think that's fundamental to build peace. You've got to be able to work well together.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah,
as you're talking, one thing I thought of too, this is, you know, uh, True Father Moon is talking about this is a God-centered movement. So I think that's an important element. And but he has often said that, neither communism nor democracy will work. And of course, communism is
yeah,
atheistic. So I mean, we have to show, I guess, what do I want to say? Is forbearance or love, or love. Meaning not to accept evil, but somehow there has to be. I mean, I guess
yeah.
ultimately you have to accept God. I mean, even like I remember when the Soviet Union fell, you know, Reverend Moon, Father Moon told Gorbachev to open up, especially religious freedom. So, and
Mm,
then now, ironically, Russia is becoming more open. Although I do understand they still have issues like of the state church kind of issues and things like that. But anyway, at least
yeah,
they're moving in toward the religious direction. So I don't know. Anyway, that's our
yeah. No,
perspective.
I think it's true. We need God. It's so important. And really, yeah. in that conversation to really build peace, because it's like the parent that's the harmony, to find the harmony, or to see each other as family with a common divine parent, you know.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
absolute values. Without absolute values, I think you'd have basically chaos,
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, I mean, this is just amazing. Yeah, you were talking about the idea of the kings right here. So I know in like unification terminology, we talk about Chanoguk, or which basically means the kingdom
Yeah.
of God. So, and that True Father Moon said that starting in 2001, if I'm not mistaken, November,
Yeah. A
he
while
announced that
ago.
the Chanoguk is here. So that was almost 2 decades ago. So then I think part of it is what you said. You have to understand that and know. And that's why I honestly don't believe, like, in whatever situation, whether it be the current,
Yeah.
election chaos, I don't believe evil will prevail. But I also don't mean, I know as a fact we can't sit around on our butts. We have to, work for righteousness and goodness. Or do you have any comments or thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think about this a lot, like Chodoko and I guess for me, the first time it really struck me was I used to think it was like a state that we'd reach, right? Like it's a kingdom of heaven on earth, that there's peace everywhere. But I realized it's more like a state of being, if that makes sense. That you're in, you feel, you experience it because of this love, and you feel love. So for me, actually in Norway, I I felt like I tasted this, what this means, you know, what this is talking about, where there was several moms that were we just all helped each other. And I realized, like, it's not that we had it all figured out. Becoming a mom is hard, and family, and growing your family and raising children. And we really supported each other in growing together. And I felt like, wow, this is Chanilkuk. Like, I am myself, and I'm trying my best to be the best mom and wife, and, you know, in our family. And I have other families that are doing the same. So we're not comparing or judging each other, but we're really supporting each other. And it's kind of like we're all growing together, because I feel like life is all about growing. And it hit me that, like, you can be in that state of being and growing toward being even better. Because I think sometimes we're really hard on ourselves of uh well, I could be a better, you know, being a true family, what does that mean? But the idea of knowing you're growing together and you're supported by other families that are, we're all growing together, and it is becoming a better world where, you know, if all of us are working on really trying to be true families, like, that really hit me as something very real. And I started seeing it as something that you can experience already, and it's quite what's the word, spreadable, I don't know, that's the right word. It could catch on, right?
Yeah, and also the idea that I was reading a book by this one Christian author who I do like a lot. I think I'm going to critique it from a unification
Yeah.
viewpoint. It's called God's Chaos Code, and it's talking
Cool.
about the current goings on in the world and things like that. But anyway, the idea that the kingdom, what I'm getting at is kingdom comes from the bottom up. He was saying something
Yeah.
a little different, like the importance of gatekeepers and this and that, which may have some significance. But in reality, True Father Moon says here clearly that it starts from blessed families, from families that are godly, and expands outward or upward or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, I actually, in other sections of the speech, then he's
Yeah.
saying that what you were talking about earlier, like you have an intercultural, international family. You, isn't that a song? You are the world. I mean,
Yeah.
there's truth in that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that could
Yep.
expand out. I think that's very, very significant. What do you think?
I think it's extremely significant, because I feel like that's what helped. Like I was sharing what we talked about, being able to work together to build peace. I feel like because of what I've learned in my family, it makes it easier to do that in other, you know, contexts. And so I think it's really like nice. Also, I feel when you think big, then you have to do bigger things. So if you think about, like, because people could read it and think, yeah, okay, so it's all about my family, and you get focused on your family. But if you think about it, it's about the world family. My family is the world. You are the world. Like, you're thinking bigger, and then you've got to act bigger. You've got to grow your heart bigger. You've got to. So I think that's really important. It's a family that's thinking about the world. Yeah, in whatever capacity that is. It might not be that you have to do huge things, but just have a heart that's willing to grow bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the like the third way. I mean, I'm hoping that I'm helping to facilitate that on some aspect because I'm
Yeah.
inviting different guests on the show. Some are unificationists, some are, and obviously, you know, there's different stripes of unificationism,
Yeah.
and some are not, different other faiths, or I don't know,
Yeah.
various different
Cool.
people. So I'm hoping that by
That
reading the
brings.
word and discussing it, then we'll move into that kind of third sphere or something like that that you're talking about.
Yep.
Because
Think so.
because I'm thinking if everybody and their uncle, so to speak, could like read and discuss even this speech, which is similar to other peace measures, but you know that this in itself has enough of the word
Mhm.
to for people to understand the basic framework for the kingdom. You know.
Yeah. That's why I really love the peace messages. They're probably one of my favorite to read, and this speech in particular, because it's a lot about family, and it's got some really concrete like examples. But something that always strikes my when I try to think of, okay, what would this ideal world, Chanilguk, the terminology we use, I think of a phrase which I think is from the peace messages. I don't know if it's in this one or one of the other ones, but every person is born in love, grows in love, dies in love, into the spirit world where you breathe the air of true love. And when I think about that, I'm like, that's what it means, you know. It's just a world of love. Like, we create that. And until every person experiences that, which isn't the world we live in right now, but I picture that that's where we're going. Um, yeah, it helps me keep it kind of like a clear why. Why is this important? You know, and how to think about the world, care about
Yes,
other people's families, and yeah, that sphere.
very much
So
so.
it's really
Yeah.
powerful to have words like this, and it's really great to discuss them too,
I
reflective.
agree. I agree. It reminds me very much of the conferences that were in the like around the 2000-ish. There were many of these
Yeah.
American leadership conferences where it studied the word. I wish those were ongoing. They're not. I mean, not that I
Okay.
know of. But in any case, it's the same spirit, I believe.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we're coming toward the conclusion. Any like closing thoughts or anything
Well,
you'd like to share that's on your mind?
well, I just think this is really cool. You started, I don't know if you shared it before, how you got started with this, but and views from God's point of view, I like that. And
Oh,
reading the
with
speech and how you've broken it up, it's a great idea.
yeah, yeah. So you wanted me to share something about that? Or
Yeah, I mean, if maybe you've already shared it, but I think people love to know like the behind the scenes or inspiration.
yeah, the news and views from God's point of view. Well, let's see. So, hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, let's see. So I had a some blog online back to 2015. It was more like church centric. So I've been involved in different aspects, or what do you say? Not factions. I guess they're factions. Different parts of the unification movement, but I've always
Yeah.
studied the word
Yeah.
regardless and believed in the basic core message. So anyway, so I was encouraged by, you know, Hyung Jin Moon to start a video channel, and I did. I was talking
Um,
mostly about church stuff, and then I of 2018, I didn't affiliate there anymore, but I kept doing periodically
more.
different blogs. And then,
Yeah.
but on this year, on or about, let's see, about around March 1st, I decided to do it, you know, weekly. And also I
Yeah.
decided I became a little more familiar with the idea of the podcast that, you know, a lot of people do podcasts. So
Yeah.
I set it up on my WordPress site. So I host it right on my own site. So it's a podcast and I read, you know, it gets registered on any podcast platform. So anyway, what got me specifically going was the whole COVID-19 thing. I'm
Yeah.
not
That's
sure,
what
you
I
know, we're
thought.
not here to discuss or argue about it, but my thing was like it was way over the top. My topic of my first series was, you can find it on our website, which by the way is visionroot.org,
Yeah.
visionroot.org. was, you know, the COVID-19 agenda, the great fraud COVID-19 agenda. So I went into the whole thing with the World Health Organization and Bill Gates, a lot of things. And, you know, I haven't had to retract anything. I mean, might have been a little ahead of the time because we see that even this COVID-19 thing has bled into the election thing. Why didn't they let the observers in Pennsylvania and Michigan? Oh, it's COVID-19. Don't come in. Stay
Yeah.
150 feet away. So, I mean, that's
Oh.
fraudulent too. We could, and if you've seen my other shows, you know, I've been talking about that. But
Yeah.
so I felt I need to speak out. And then the idea for this series was that, as I said, I feel like I want to engage people. So I interviewed also, I got this inspiration God gave me about 3 weeks before our West Virginia primaries. He said, hey, why don't you reach out and invite the statewide and county, I'm in Jefferson County, West Virginia, people to come on your show. And so I had no idea who would come on. Actually, about 40% of the primary candidates came on my show. And I interviewed like the Supreme Court judges. Some of them won, of course, some of them lost. Not everybody came on. Our illustrious governor didn't come on. Surprise. But anyway, you know, quite a few did. And then I also interviewed additionally for the general election, and I also interviewed school board. So I felt I was bridging out into the world, and they know that, although I'm not like, they know, you know, my show is hosted by Vision Root, and in fact, many of them read the scriptures themselves. So I feel it's a way to integrate, you know, who I am, which is based on God and the Word of God, and then reach into the various spheres. Like this guy, Lance Wallnau, calls them the 7 M's, like, you know, media and education and entertainment and all those things. So I kind of get on my soapbox. And although my viewership isn't that big, but even whether it's 10 or 100 or I don't know, you know, or whatever, 1,000, I don't think any, no, maybe one of my videos has reached above that. But, you know, it doesn't totally matter because I feel there is value in putting that out. I find that so many times, even though I don't have that many views, when I say something, I see other people talking about a similar thing. Now, who knows? They probably didn't see my video. Some might have. But I feel it's all like kind of working together, if I'm making sense.
I think so. I think we're all connected in a lot of, more than we think in what we're thinking. But I think the energy of creating something and reaching out is so cool. And that's what we need, you know, like what are we building and creating?
Yeah. And, you know, like the candidates, some people said on one side that is kind of left leaning, hey, you only interview Republicans. I said, no, I invited them all. They didn't respond. Well, then actually I got like, well, actually several of the Democrat candidates came on. No, I interviewed them, you know, if they want to come on, they come on. Point being, you know, like you say, building bridges, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. I had no idea.
Yeah. So I hope, you know, try to continue. Oh, by the way, I invite you and all the viewers. I just set up like, I don't know. Well, I know you are aware, like, and again, I don't know your political stand. I'm not here to discuss your politics or whatever, but it's quite well known that like Facebook, you know, they censor all kinds of stuff. So I've set up a node, N-O-D-E, which is like an independent version of a thing called Friendica. Friendica is like an independent social media site. And so different people host it on their own server. So I have my own Friendica server. So I invite you to join. You go to Vision Root, you'll see a link there for Friendica. And then you can social network with anybody you want. You could set up a forum. You can set one up for the Family Federation. You can set up for Blessed Family. I don't, you know, anybody's welcome who's a God-loving person. You know, obviously no sexually explicit content. And then, you know, you're not going to be censored. Your friends are going to see your posts, like on Facebook. Who knows if they'll ever see. And if you start talking about something that Mr. Zuckerberg doesn't like, they'll never see it, you know. So yeah, so please join up there. We welcome you. Tell your friends, and it'll grow. You know, we got to have our own media. We got to, like, we don't need Mr. Zuckerberg. You know, we don't need him. There's plenty of opportunities in this kind of decentralized system.
Yeah, I mean, I always think about creativity over consuming. If more and more people were focused on creating their own thing, I think that's where the internet's really going. With, if you think everyone's online and with COVID now, it's not going to be such big dominant. I mean, we're in maybe a transition point. But more and more people will need to be entrepreneurs. More and more people will find their sort of pockets of who they connect with, rather than just all following one person. And the more we're creating, I feel that's really important in all of the other things we talked about, like in creating your family and creating, the what kind of society you want, like having a part in it instead of just sitting back and consuming or receiving whatever's
No,
being
I
said.
totally, this is so interesting. Like, so
Yeah.
one of the first candidates interviewed was Alan Witt, who's also the executive director, I think, of the not the Family Research Council, but the Family Initiative, similar to that in West Virginia. Anyway, he ran for Senate. He lost in the primary. I wish he would have been elected. He would have been a much better candidate than the current senator. But all that being said, I think it's about building bridges. I think it's about reaching out to different people. Oh, what I was trying to say is we have to become our own media. So like,
Yeah.
I've become,
I think that's where we're going.
yeah. So like I'm a little media organization, it just started more from this inspiration, and we should each be our own mini organization. So like I have, an urban life training site, urban grocery site,
Yeah, I mean, you're ahead of the game. You've been doing this already. You can help people.
But yeah, and now I have a Friendica site. So I just definitely want whoever's listening out there, you're tired of being censored. If you're talking about health freedom or vaccine choice, and you're censored every other word, come to our Friendica site. You will not be censored. Invite your friends. You can set up. This is for you. It's non-commercial. You can donate to support it, but we don't make any money on it. We're hosting it ourselves. So yeah. That is the trend of the future, you're right?
It is. It is. That's really
Wow,
cool.
I've enjoyed this show. So some new ideas are generating even out of it.
Yeah.
Let's continue the conversation. Maybe you'll come on again we'll talk about other things. And I do really, really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. It's fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I am your host, Richard Urban. By the way, sign up for the Daily Inspiration if you don't get it. That's our scripture ministry. You can find it at visionroot.org. So I'm your host, Richard Urban, coming from historic Harper's Ferry. And do be blessed, and we'll see you next time.